stranger's way of loving someone, and it feels like it's all over before it has begun. Oh, but when we do collide, we're playing no games. Don't you know that kind of love must go down in flames? Oh, we should really leave this one alone, but it keeps coming back, coming back, coming back. Two lovers on the floor, a band-aid on the store. Two lovers want more. It's such a hopeless situation, but we do it again. Oh, we do it again. Say what normal people do. We're off and on like a light switch. You treat me like a punching bag. You better make it count. Oh, it's like the wise man said, the love is for no one. Love is a blind man who must be set free. Two lovers on the floor, a band-aid on the store. Two lovers want more. It's such a hopeless situation, but we do it again. Two lovers on the floor, band-aid on the store. Two lovers want more. Oh, it's such a hopeless situation, but we do it again. We should really leave this one alone, but it keeps coming back, coming back, coming back. Oh, we should really leave this one alone, but it keeps coming back, coming back, coming back. Two lovers on the floor,
You better wake me up, wake me up.
band-aid on the store.
We gotta rip it off, rip it off.
Two lovers want more.
You better shake me up, shake me up.
Band-aid on the store. Two lovers on the floor,
Wake me up,
band-aid on the store. Two lovers want more. It's such a hopeless situation, but we do it again. Two lovers on the
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Esports Weekly, the first episode of a new season. We are finally back. Paladins Esports is going to be going into full effect, effective this week. We've had the Console League and the Minor League going on for a couple of weeks. Now we're going into the Premier League starting tomorrow, so everything is finally going. And of course, we need your one-stop shop for everything Paladins Esports, ready and available whenever you can. My name is Gormizer, also known as William Newberry, depending on which one you know me as. And today's going to be a really fun show. First off, we're going to be covering things in the Console League. A lot of the matches have already happened. Like I said, we're in week 3 of that, as well as the Minor League, which we'll be covering shortly after that. Going on from there, we're going to have a couple of videos in between that you can watch and enjoy, and then we finally get to jump into, I want to say maybe the meat and potatoes, going into some of the things about the Premier League, being able to discuss some of the differences that are happening now that we're on LAN, as well as maybe some of the teams that have changed up. And then at the very end of the day, we have a very special interview with none other than Vex30. For anyone who was watching some of the segments we did, we had a really fun one in December, and that's going to play an important role in some of the questions I have today. But that is going to be what is going on with this episode, and we are going to be ready to go into the Console League. But before we jump into the Console League, we do have a quick break, so we're going to jump to this video and then be right back.
Enemy double kill, triple kill, overtime. Triple kill, killing twice kill, double kill. Double, triple kill. Enemy triple kill. One kill. Overtime. Double kill. Killing spree. Enemy triple kill. Double kill. Enemy triple kill. Enemy triple killing spree. Enemy overtime. Triple kill.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, the Console League is going to be what we're talking about. You just got to see quite a few highlights from those players being able to kind of make splashes, make some waves. But to join me in discussing what's going on with the Console League, I have none other than Dave Olson standing on the desk. I guess sitting on the desk with me. We're not standing anymore.
Would not work if I stood on the desk.
No, you'd be way too tall for the camera shot. But we're going to be coming in. I mean, this is officially your first Esports Weekly, and you know, the first time you get to come through and be the correspondent. How are you feeling?
Good. It's been a long start so far. I mean, we're 3 weeks in, so there's a lot to kind of look back on, a lot to break down, but it's been fun so far, and I'm sort of excited to jump into it.
And to jump into it, I think, is the best way. There's a lot of interesting things that have been happening in the Console League, if you've been paying any attention. Just the way things have been going. I mean, we're looking at maybe some of these teams that are kind of still dominating. Flashpoint, obviously, still sitting at the top of their league, but a couple of splashes being made in North America, and the PS4 specifically, heating up, is in this weird area with pretty good roster, but maybe not quite the scoreline they want. No,
and it's been tough seeing how they started, at least. I mean, they had to go against Invictus week 1, which is proven to be not who you want, which is proven. I mean, initially going into it, I think everyone with the players that they have, you have Whoosh, Jeff, Soldier, but I mean, with that roster, I think everyone had assumed going in that they would be spot number 1, and I think that's sort of what caught us off guard week 1, and looking back on it now, week 2 they get a win over Has-Beens 3-0, followed up with a win over Low Key Scheming, and then another match against Has-Beens next week. They do have the makings for what could be a 3-1 kind of reversal from their initial loss, but losing 3-1 to Invictus right off the bat, I think, is what caught most of us off guard. So I think it's more interesting that Invictus is doing well. Heating Up is still there. I think they can give Invictus a run for their money, but I think that's certainly been sort of the storyline to watch in North America.
And I think that's the matchup that everyone's kind of keeping their eyes open for, right? You're looking specifically to try and find that Invictus and Heating Up matchup one more time, specifically because there's going to be a big difference between, I think, the first time around, and that's that I'm Calamity is no longer on Invictus. A lot of the highlights you saw in that first set, their first matchup, Calamity has since moved to Heating Up.
They stole him.
And, I mean, that's a pretty big player considering the impact we saw in week 1, but it hasn't really slowed Invictus down.
No, and it hasn't. I mean, you have Sorrow, Guap, Richie, TKO, Ghost, other Shutter. I mean, that lineup, while initially, again, this is all looking initially at it, it surprised us that they beat Heating Up. But seeing how they've played cohesively and together over the past few weeks, it's not surprising seeing them on top of that division.
Yeah, and I think everyone's pretty excited, especially if you're a fan of watching the Console League. That one's probably one of the matchups, the key matchups to keep your eye on. Another key matchup that is going to be coming up actually this next week is going to involve the team I mentioned earlier, Flashpoint, who has been dominating their region, and the team that everyone is placing their bets on as the one who can finally potentially take them down one day, and that is none other than iTech.
And I think a lot of the Flashpoint success, we'll dive into the EU stuff here in a minute, but a lot of the Flashpoint success has been on the back of Prosper Logic and Good Lad, and it feels like week after week after week, we're saying, oh, you know, here's Prosper Logic on the Victor, and he's gone. Week 2, he went 31-40 was his slash line in week 2. He had a 43.33 KDA in EU PS4. But as you said, iTech on the flip side, you have Atomic AMK, Benji, Tarek. Certainly a lineup that can keep up, but the real storyline to watch there is if Prosper Logic, if Good Lad can keep up the pace that they've set, because, I mean, it's a pretty ridiculous pace if you really look at it. I mean, you can nitpick as much as you want and try to dive into it as much as you want, but at the end of the day, Prosper, Good Lad, and honestly, the rest of the Flashpoint lineup is just playing lights out right now.
Yeah.
But iTech, I think, is the team that can give them a run for their money.
Well, and you'll notice throughout a lot of these highlights, you have Prosper Logic playing Victor. He actually messaged me at one point during this last week when we were talking about it. Like, after their set, he comes on and he's just like, by the way, I stopped playing Victor so people would stop accusing me of being a one-trick, essentially. Obviously,
when
he
you're
plays
so good at
incredibly
it,
well. Yeah. So he's coming through, and that was, again, the kind of showcasing, and we got to talk about it on the desk for that, where it's just like, you have so many good players on Flashpoint that at this point have been together for so long, winning a LAN together just a little under a year ago at this point. So, I mean, this is a team that not only do we expect to potentially take on iTech and come out on top, but they're also just dominating in Europe.
They are. I mean, the teams beneath them, and we saw Stush play them this past week, and it actually was a pretty close game. I know that we had F. Dot on the desk that day, and he kind of fell in love with Stush, but they fall just short. But just Europe in general, and it's unfortunate that they're stuck in sort of the PS4 side, because you look on the opposite side, I'd love to see them play Cyclone or Bust Down. But that roster is just, they're really firing on all cylinders. And again, obviously Prosper and Good Lad are sort of the two names that we keep saying, but the rest of that roster supports them so well and make a name for themselves in each and every game they play as well.
And I mean, it's again back to what I had just mentioned. This is one of the longest lasting teams, I'd say, in terms of their roster that we've seen in the console scene. A lot of other changes that happened to come over through all of this, and we saw a few of that. I mean, players like Atomic AMK that we were mentioning, players on Heating Up that we were mentioning earlier, those make the big difference. But it is very much kind of this direction towards Europe. North America has been an incredibly interesting kind of shakeup, I would say. Elevate has gone back, or I guess not even gone back onto the Xbox. They're still on the Xbox, and they're still looking incredibly good. But when you're looking at Europe, it's still kind of the same two teams. I think Cyclone has become kind of an amalgamation of what was already there. A couple of good players from here, a couple of good players from there. But Flashpoint has stayed together. They are just dominating, and it doesn't seem like anyone's going to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, I think stagnant was the word that we kind of threw out in, is Europe stagnant? And I think it's kind of a yes and no. I'm going to give the cop-out kind of sort of answer, in that I think at the moment, if you're looking at PS4 and Xbox, Cyclone is the best team on the Xbox side. And I think head above everyone else is Flashpoint on the PS4 side. But with that being said, I think the second place teams have potential to give them, I mean, it's a long season that we have here in the console league. I think that Bust Down on the Xbox side can certainly give Cyclone a run for their money. I know that they have played in the past. I know that Cyclone took the wins over Bust Down, but they were close games. They'll get to play 3-4 more times over the course of this season. So I don't think it's stagnant. I think there is potential that a team like Bust Down can unseat a team like Cyclone, and a team like iTech could unseat a team like Flashpoint. But as of right now, both are just playing so well. I don't know if I see it.
Well, speaking of Bust Down, and a potential for them to be able to come in, take on someone like Cyclone. Before they do that, they have to continue a win streak or make up for a loss they had this week. Next week, we have Team Viral going up against them. And Viral, still a team looking for their first win. Bust Down, like I just said, during this past week, took their first loss. And we actually got to sit down. We talked to not only you, but Evan and Nick as well, to get the predictions for everybody about how this set was going to go. And surprise, surprise, they do tend to lean towards one side. I think Viral's still looking for their breakthrough.
They are, and I think the breakthrough is on its way. But I agree with everyone else in that I don't think it's coming this week. I think Radiant is where their sights need to be set right now. I think that's where Viral's going to find their first win. But Bust Down, I think, on the flip side of the coin, and it's less so about Viral. I mean, they're a good team. They qualified into this league, and they have the potential to beat anyone any given week. But I think Bust Down, coming off a close loss to Cyclone, will have really gathered it together in practice this week, and it's unfortunate that Viral happens to be the team that they have to play after a tough loss.
Well, I mean, going into this, we have just a couple of minutes left for the Console League segment. Is there anything specifically, coming up in the next few weeks, or just any big matchups, any team changes that you're excited to see?
I think matchups wise, it's all the 1s and 2s across the board. I think we'll get a little bit of that next week with Flashpoint and iTech, and that's certainly a matchup to watch. But I think across all of our regions, when Invictus play heating up again, we touched on them earlier at the top of the segment. That'll be the one to watch in North America PS4. Flashpoint iTech, obviously, in EU PS4. And then Cyclone Bustdown, when they get to come back again and play each other, I mean, those are all the matchups to watch, because as of now, it seems like those number 1 teams have sort of cemented themselves where they're at. But those number 2 teams are so close that those matchups over the next few weeks are really going to determine how far ahead one really is from the rest of the pack.
Well, hey, I'm just going to say I want to see more Elevate play. That is pretty much the number one thing on my list. They've been doing incredibly, but we will have to wait until pretty much next Monday to see that. Tune in 11 a.m. on Mondays, mixer.com/PaladinsGame to tune into the console league. But for now, that's all we have to break down for them. We're going to go to a quick break, and then right after we're back, we'll jump into the minor league. But before that, enjoy some memes.
Boy!
Team Zenith yet to really get on the point. When's it going to happen now? Apparently, Flame Effects gets on. It gets pulled right back off. And no!
To the wall. To the swamp.
I feel like that would have been where, the Whitney Houston bodyguards, And I almost went there. And that Heartbreaker Tyra, she is not one for delays.
Man.
She wants now.
At this point... Oh. Welcome back, folks.
Welcome back, Charlie. How's it going over there at the old...
my pants aren't up high enough.
I'm
not talking fast enough.
Get some healing on the agility. Press F every now and then.
Left shift, you mean?
Yes, left, no, left click.
I'll come out and say, if you don't rebind your movement skills
I don't.
to left shift and you still play with F,
Yeah, I don't.
you do.
Yeah, I don't rebind. It actually is confusing if I'm playing other games too, because then I come back and I'm used to holding shift and then nothing's happening. And I'm like, what?
That was a big part of it, is like you sprint with shift in like every single game. So I'm like, I think it makes sense. Plus, you get your pinky, right? And what's your pinky doing if not sitting on shift?
Pinky ups, dude.
Left alts.
Your pinky gets so much strength from that. And you may be asking,
What else are you
what
good
does a
for?
man do with a not strong pinky versus a
I
strong
got these
pinky?
tiny fingers.
And when you get pinkies like those, you can just take over the
You
world.
get in the gym, right?
I mean, how many times
What if
do
you could, like, I don't know.
have like 5
Pinky
coffee
bicep.
cups you're carrying, but can't get the 6th? Strong pinky.
Yeah! Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and Nick finding a new voice here today, and thank you for joining us after this break. And we have a great matchup to talk about here. Downfall, you have Bork, you got a great logo on one side, and you see it over my left shoulder here, and a lot to break down. What do you think?
Well, Dave, I thought we were gonna go.
That worked a lot better
Little
than I thought
fancy
it would.
footwork,
Yeah.
but we pulled a fast one on you, didn't we, Chad?
You know, it's
Hell yeah!
it's a weird day
Hell yeah! I love that. Yeah.
where Ice Mines could be a
Ice Mine's my favorite.
breath of fresh air, I guess, when
Such a breath of fresh air.
compared to what we've seen.
Ice Mines. Oh yeah!
Oh yeah. Hey, welcome back, everyone, as we jump into a lot of the interesting segments that we have. That was Probably the best reason and the worst reason they ever linked up the replay computer to every camera. Nothing we do, unless it's in the green room, can be unseen, which is why all the silly stuff happens in there. But we are here with the minor league, and I am joined for this discussion with none other than Nick Kia, I guess is how it was pronounced in the video.
I know. I never thought I'd be given such a great name, great title. A lot of good stuff comes out of those meme videos there. Definitely kudos to Joe. And it's nice, you know, we kind of meme on each other for having one of those games, one of those casts every once in a while where you're not really on the action so much, but you know, you gotta fuel the entertainment every once in a while.
Pump some life back into it.
That's right.
So that when you do get serious again, it's not just draining.
Yeah.
But we have the minor league, and very much like the console league, it's been going on for a few weeks, and I feel like with the change up, so we used to have, you know, the global series, the console series, and with the change up to this league format, we've actually gotten a lot more,
that's right,
I want to say, like, competitive games out of it.
Yeah, and I want to kind of talk about sort of high-level stuff and the meta specifically, and like how these players are sort of coming together. A lot of these rosters are in flux right now. Specifically, once this meta starts for the PPL, it's just one region, right? And so that's what's going to be really, really curious for me to watch now that there's a split region minor league still and a unified PPL. How does the meta that we see in the PPL translate into the minor league? Are they just going to kind of monkey see, monkey do, where there'll still be an NA and an EU sort of region split there between what people are picking? And even down in the console league, right, is there going to be 4 different one, like little bite-sized metas that we've kind of seen go with them? So that's really going to be an interesting thing. And do these teams that are very in flux right now, specifically a lot of the teams, like Sour Team with 3 ex-PPL players, do we see them continue to dominate, right? Because we've already had, I think, 2 instances of a minor league player this season be called up to the PPL to start performing at the next level. So I want to see, and maybe even issue a little bit of a challenge, right? Can a minor league squad that doesn't have an ex-PPL player, can they come together and take an action against these ex-PPL players and say, you know, the minor league is not just for you guys to come and goof around and have a good time and kick our butts, right? Can they come together as 5 people and say, you know, this is our league, right? We're going to take this over, and we're going to start dominating and show that you have to put the work in to kind of be successful here. You have to be a complete 5-man unit. But right now, it is just kind of Sour Team dominating over in Europe. So that's why I think a lot of us are very excited for this Clown Fiesta Sour Team match that's going to be coming up in the next week. And
I think it's crazy to think that the Premier League hasn't even started yet, and you still have players that are getting brought up to perform into that.
Third, fourth week of minor league. It's going to be crazy.
And so PPL starting tomorrow, but the minor league having kind of, I guess, determined that. And I think one of the things you were kind of hinting at was, are we going to see this meta that is the online, I guess, version of what things are in the minor league right now?
Yeah.
Is that going to stay the way it is for the next few weeks? Or are these next 2 days of LAN that we have coming up tomorrow, and then as it goes forward every Thursday and Friday, going to alter what we see in the minor league?
It'll be very interesting because I think there's, you know, we're talking a lot about console teams, and now they're starting to scrim PC, or specifically minor league teams. Has there been any minor league teams on PC that are scrimming Premier League teams?
Yeah.
And is there going to be, you know, any insight given, right? You know what I mean? Is everything under wraps as far as what the Premier League players are going to be playing? That's going to be the biggest differentiator in what we see a big change come through, right? If no one's really been scrimming, no one's been seeing what's happening at the PPL level of scrims and drafts.
True.
That's maybe when we see a big jump happen for the minor league.
Well, we do have some interesting matchups that are coming up, and again, I'm interested in seeing whether or not these alter if they stay the way they are. Because I guess the format of it, get to see a lot more rematches in the minor league, and the first one that's going to be coming up is actually Ferocity and Downfall. Ferocity coming into this was, I think, in my mind, the #1 team. They had done really, really well during the qualifiers. They looked really, really good. But it ended up actually being Downfall, who is the team that has come to beat. It just seems like the way that they've come together, specifically having Edgem and Shadow working the way they do together, has opened so many doors.
And it comes a little bit back to that conversation of, you know, ex-PPL player versus like a full-time minor league guy, and how does Shadow fit in with the rest of this roster, and how can these guys sort of come together? And it's been very close, frankly, in the past couple of weeks. Ferocity has been looking very good, but even on some of these NA minor league rosters, you're starting to see people are getting called up from the minor league, and that's really going to have a big effect on the way that these teams continue to play in the coming weeks. Can they continue to have these types of impacts if their, you know, big ex-PPL players are getting called up? If Shadow gets called up, Flame Effects, I believe, is getting called up as well. So How can these players still come together and find a way to stay on top? Because that's what it's going to take. These are very, very long splits that they're going to have to be grinding through, and you can't just put it together for 6 or 8 weeks. It's going to be, I think, closer to 13 weeks that they have to stay on top.
And I mean, this matchup specifically is the one that I think is starting to, I'm going to use a team name that we had earlier, it's starting to heat up. Like, this is starting to get a little hotter, because the first week, Ferocity, and admittedly a lot of the weeks, kind of felt like the Poison Show. And even this last week, sometimes it felt like the Poison Show. But you see Jalen Sanity, you see Kerfluffle, you see Va all kind of stepping up to the next level. But Stigma is the one that has caught my eye the most. Stigma is the one that kind of seemed like I didn't know who he was. I was like, okay, this is another fresh face. Like, we have the minor league. A lot of teams picked up whoever they could, whether they're friends or whether they were just really, really good at ranked. But Stigma has been making a huge splash, so I'm really excited to see what he's going to do. And that kind of is a good segue. He's the new blood. And one of the things that you wanted to talk about was kind of like this old blood, new blood, the way the minor league works. You have Perdo and Sheepa and Ninu, ex-PPL players on one team, and then you get faces we've never seen on another.
It's scary, right? Because if the minor league just becomes all about who's got the most ex-PPL players, then Sour Team is just going to dominate forever, because not only do they have 3, which is more, usually about 2 more, most teams have like 1, right? They have 3, and not only do they have 3, but they have 3 guys, especially in Perdo and Sheepa, who are extremely veteran, who are extremely tested on land, proven on land. They've won big tournaments, they've had those big moments, and they haven't caved under the pressure, right? So if this just becomes the old guy washed up PPL show, then Sour Team is just going to dominate forever.
And, I mean, with the way things have been going, Sour Team has been, the team to beat, I guess, as of right now. A team almost beat them the last time they played. We actually got to have a lengthy set with them, go all 5 games, and it was against Clown Fiesta, and lo and behold, they get to play again next week. So we got to sit down once again with everybody and kind of talk through predictions, who's going to win it, and I believe I'm the odd man out on this one, because I'm still going for Sour Team, the undefeated, but everyone else is believing in Clown Fiesta here.
And a big part of the reason, at least from my point of view, is yesterday we saw Sour Team lose their first map. It was on Frozen Guard against All Business, and they got absolutely kind of handled there. So what I am looking for Clown Fiesta, a team that is already close to taking down Sour Team, is to say Sour Team they're the big boys, right? They're going to be extremely confident, and I think that's going to lead to some complacency, right? I don't think Perdo and Sheepa and Ninu and the boys are going to be super worried about what they have to do. On top of this, Sour Team's Zarini is going to be coming to fill in for Na'Vi for their first Premier League games until they can get the rest of their roster situations situated out. So at that point, they're a man down. They've been feeling really, really confident about it. So I think Sour Team can use all of this, swirl it together, and put themselves in a position to win this week.
Well, hopefully we get to see. I'm just hoping for a good set, honestly, when it comes down to it. I think one team will, obviously one team's going to come out on top, and it's going to be the question of, does someone else displace the first place team, or does Sour Team just continue sitting on there? But I mean, with the way the minor leagues have been going, especially with the Premier League coming up, I mean, do you have any final thoughts, like things you want to see, things that are kind of getting your blood pumping?
I just want to see good matches for sure, and I think a lot of teams need to not lose hope, realize this is a longer split, it's going to be 13 weeks, and that a lot of teams are still in flux, so a lot can change from week to week. If things didn't go your way in the first 3, keep your head up, because you got 10 more to rock and roll.
And I think that's where we see some of the other teams. Bork specifically comes to my mind there. A lot of turmoil that has been happening. You had mentioned it. A couple of roster swaps through a lot of these teams, whether or not it's maybe chosen or not. They've been doing their best to kind of keep ahead. But that is going to do it for the minor league talk today. And coming up shortly, we do have the Premier League conversation starting. It's going to kind of have me breaking down a couple of things. We're also going to talk about the collegiate scene for a little bit. But before we can get and jump into any of that, we're going to go to a quick break, and then we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. This is my segment. I don't have a clever title for it yet. I might go with something like Miser's Musings or something. Who knows? We'll figure that out as we go ahead, but we have a couple of things to talk about today. One of the big ones is going to be the Collegiate League, the NACE championship team that we actually got to see during this past HRX. The finalists that we saw, MSU, competed and emerged victorious this week 2-0 against Shriner University last weekend in the grand finals. And this season has actually been pretty interesting. They have a lot more teams that are competing than we've seen previously. Teams like Snow College, Carleton University, of course, one of my favorites, Clemson University. I wonder why they could sit on top for me. I'm never going to dive into that one. But this is something that has been pretty big happening in the league. Always keep your eyes open if you want to find out more about the Collegiate League. I'm sure we have posts on the website going out as well as ways to follow that. And if you're a team in college and you're trying to compete, always look for those opportunities and kind of try to find them whenever they come up. There's always more room for more esports. There's always room for the collegiate teams to come in there. And speaking of the way the esports going, collegiate could then feed into a minor league, which then feeds into a premier league, which is what we have starting tomorrow. And it's going to be a very interesting thing. And one of the things we've kind of hinted at, and I'm sure a few people know this already, but it's that the regions don't matter anymore. The regions, there's no North America, there's no Europe. It is all going to be happening in one place. The teams are coming here to Atlanta, coming to the Skillshot studio, and every single Premier League match from this point on, at least for this split, I believe this year, is going to be played live on LAN. So what kind of differences does that make? Well, we had 10 teams, 5 NA, 5 EU. Now we're going down to 8. But we're also losing the NA-EU split, so everyone's going to be playing each other. You're going to get to see the matchup of something like Envy versus Navi in the regular season. It's not just going to have to be something that you wait for a grand finals at a world championship for, and because of that, you get to see a lot more of these matchups that I think are interesting. I also think because of the way some of these teams are going to be going, you're going to end up picking up, I want to say, more interesting matchups. Teams like the newly formed Virtus Pro, whose roster we get to break down later, and also get to talk to Vex30 about. They get to come in and kind of have a performance against some of these top teams like Envy and Navi, who have mostly stayed stagnant in their roster. So the question is going to be, can these kind of, I guess not even old blood, but can these old shots that are coming in, or I guess new blood, new formed teams, take down these rosters that have been dominating potentially for a year? That's going to be the big question. Of course, we've looked at Envy before, we've looked at Navi before, and tried to break them down. And in fact, they have a big matchup coming up this week even. So you are already coming back into this season, day one, with a rematch from the HRX finals. You get to see Envy versus Navi one more time, and we did get to talk to every single person that we have here, all the casters, to determine who is going to win this. And of course, there's a couple of background information things about this matchup that I think are going to make the key difference, but we looked at every single matchup for this one, or every single player for this one, and determined whether Envy or Navi are going to win, and lo and behold, everyone voted for Envy. There's a couple of things going behind this. First off, originally, we thought, well, actually, there's still going to be a sub-player coming in. Zarini from Sour Team, as was mentioned in the minor league, is going to be stepping up to play with Navi to try and come into this match. And honestly, because of that, I feel like you can see most of us kind of believe that Envy, the team that literally just won the World Championship and has been in a tear for a year, is going to be able to take down a team that, even though they are one of the best, is going to be losing one of their key members to be able to make this go forward. Will Navi be able to bounce back in the coming weeks? I'm absolutely positive of it. 4 members for their team is still incredibly strong, but that is going to be what we have there. I mean, those are probably the biggest matchup, I want to say, but there's so many good teams that I'm personally excited for to be able to see, and I can't wait to be able to talk some of those rosters with you, or at least some of the matchups that we're going to see as we go into the PPL, but that is going to be a segment that we actually have coming up pretty soon, and to be able to kind of get you in the mood for it, we have a trailer for something that we actually got to talk about with the Team Envy boys, your current world champion, so let's go ahead and take a look at what they have to say about this next year.
Team Envy before Reboot and Rock Monkey, they were just that 4th place team. They were just kind of floating around, not doing bad, but kind of finding their way.
Tolkien came up to me and he's like, "What do you think about Rock and Rubu?" You know, I was like, not gonna lie, that sounds pretty crazy.
And as soon as we added Rock and Rubu, our already good scrim results got even better. And when we brought those two pieces in, everything clicked and we were just firing on all cylinders.
You just felt them out, and that's everything they had. And you have more, you know? It's like they showed us everything and we had more.
We had established, in our eyes, ourselves as a top team in the world. But that for me was the confirmation that, that was the first test that the recipe worked.
I just felt like so happy to be with like my teammates. Like I love those guys so much. Like I don't know. There's no better teammates in the world for me personally. So.
Honestly, I just wanted to win again. Winning is a feeling that you can't really replace.
I had a taste of winning. I can't just not have it anymore.
I mean, 2 trophies would be nice.
Two trophies would be very nice. A couple of people have been able to get 2 of them. Mutu, I think, has 2 rings on his finger. Didn't quite get that 3rd that he was looking for this last year. Still has that potential as things go forward. The PPL starting back up, and to join this discussion, I have none other than Evan Rain Day Rayner.
That's right.
Coming onto the desk. The Rain Day is very important part.
Very important.
You can't mess with the Rain Day.
Can't hurt the
Or
brand.
the Rainstorm.
Yeah, the Rainstorm. There you go. That's copyright.
That is copyright.
Okay, yeah, you can't say that. You owe me a
Never
nickel.
give up, never. Oh, wait, no. That's another copyright. I can't stop.
We're going to court. You say that, we're all going to court.
That's why you have
Shut
to cut
the show
it
down.
off. But hey, man, I mean, the PPL is back, and I'm
Yes.
sure you're just excited as I am to finally have it come through.
It's been like just what, a week or 2? We've only been waiting for a little while.
Bit,
yeah, since November. I mean, I'm excited for this to be
so
back.
long.
I think everyone is ready to just have the catharsis of like it's here again. You know, we went from basically a year and a half of it never leaving to now being gone for so long. It's been a nice little break. I think everything's evened out and we're ready to get going.
And I think we've actually gotten to see a lot of calming in the waters. Normally, like when we had it go essentially split to split to split, it was like, okay, we need to change teams. We need to change teams now. We're going to drop 3 people, pick up 3 new players. It's like, whoa, calm down. We've had a couple of months. The teams have settled. They've kind of figured themselves out. We had a signing period for a lot of them. And now they get to come in and they get to play on LAN. And I think that's probably the biggest difference that is going to be coming into this year is that everything is going to be here. And like I'd actually just mentioned, region doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter if you're the EU team in Navi. It doesn't matter if you're an NA team in Envy. You are going to play each other no matter what.
It doesn't matter except for, some of the times where our EU players are going to have to fly in and be jet lagged the day before they get in and play some of these games, which still is the case. Not every single team has moved in yet. And just talking to the NIP guys, they don't have that confirmation of if they're moving. Currently, they're flying, and we'll see how that ends up impacting them. It's a cool thing, though, because as an athlete, you always have to prepare for that. And so now these E-athletes are going to have to do the same thing.
Well, we have the day 1 schedule for the Premier League. The first time, I guess, you get to see what matchups we are going to be covering, and it is going to be an interesting day. The Pittsburgh Knights, a new team to the league, going up against a team that I guess you would recognize in NIP, although I think there's been a couple of changes there. Envy and Navi, I just mentioned that matchup during the last segment, and then we're going to close out tomorrow with Kanga Esports versus Renegades. And again, very interesting changes to some of these rosters. And another thing to note, all best of 7s.
It's going to be a bloodbath. No, it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to enjoy myself.
I wouldn't mind a bloodbath a little bit.
I wouldn't mind that either. There's going to be 3 matches. This is kind of a heavy week because we're starting out with almost double headers for every team. SSG is not here, so that would have completed our double headers for everybody. But it's a lot of matches. Usually you'll have 2 a week, but this is definitely the time to tune in. Tomorrow, you do not want to miss it.
And you'll see NIPs playing once on Thursday. Replacing them is going to be VP on Friday. Kanga will take on Envy, Renegades, and Navi, and then the Pittsburgh Knights are going to take on Virtus Pro. That's actually one of the matchups I think I'm most excited for because, like I'd mentioned, obviously we had that signing period. We had teams that did change, teams that didn't change, like Envy, Navi, mostly staying the same. Certain teams like Virtus Pro have a roster they actually announced the other day that is a couple people from over here, a couple people from over here, and then they grab a couple people from LATAM, and like that's the combination I think that I've been waiting to look for. And we get to talk to Vex a little later, so I love to crack that down with him. But I mean, are there any teams that stand out to you as like this team could just roll through people?
Roll through? It's going to be hard to say anybody but the current world champions Envy right now because there's so many question marks. Are they the most team I'm excited to watch? Probably not, because I already know what they're going to give us. They're going to give us excellence. We know they work hard. We know Meta Pusher is there with the Red Bull or the Monster, whatever's on brand for them, and the massages and the coaching to make sure that they're all hitting their shots and doing the right things. But the team I'm probably most excited about seeing play is Virtus Pro. The difference is in where they all come from, grabbing Fasheko, having Puleoli, Hecate, having Vex and Dosips, the mixing of regions, of cultures, of languages, and of ideas. That's going to be the coolest thing, because we'll see Paladins have a different level of influence on a team than it's ever had before. It's not NA's idea and EU's idea. It's all of these ideas.
Well, we're going to be going forward. A lot of the matchups I think that are going to be happening this week, one of the biggest ones I think that's a good showcase is going to be Kanga versus Renegades. And that one is going to catch my eye specifically because Renegades are kind of the same team. They have one change. ClickU, I believe, is not going to be playing, whereas Kanga is 3 out of 5, I believe, of the Australian team everyone remembers, and then a couple of new faces.
And Jared Evil Eye.
They're
throwing Jared Evil Eye. Just get him in there. It's like, what? 2 people I would never expect to be on a team ever, but they're on the team together.
Yeah.
And again, very, very spicy. They've got a solid core, which I think if you're going to add to a team like that, you have to have that solid core to give you a foundation of a style. And then you add these other players who are, superstars in their own right, coming from, past experiences of success. Obviously, Jordy and Jera, he's been to the top of the mountain. He hasn't quite, planted his flag there, and that's something he's still searching for this year. Evil Eye's been a very successful high-level player at the PPL level. So this should be a very interesting matchup. I do have to give it towards Kanga right now. But I think Renegades, they're solid, man. And if Evil Eye can perform this way, it's going to be tough for, Moonchopper and Vocal and those guys to stop it. Another story with Invocal, I mean, the fact that he's going to school here is interesting. He's got to change his life. He's only 15, 16 years old. There's a lot of personal things that are now coming into the aspect of you're not just coming to play gaming, and play Paladins. You're actually having to coordinate your whole life around this. And we'll see how these pros and these young pros sometimes deal with it.
And I think the thing I'm most interested in to be able to see, obviously you've seen a lot of the Kanga members that are going to be coming through. And a lot of people have said, especially when we saw them at this last Worlds, that it was going to be if they could play consistently on LAN with every other team, all of a sudden they'd get a lot better. And I think that's going to be the test of time, right? But bringing in Jera, bringing in Evil Eye gives them, I think, a little bit of a leg up over Renegades, who has kind of stayed a little more stagnant. But how do you think that's going to fare when they have to go up against one of their other matchups this week, which is going to be Envy?
I think Envy have a chance to, continue getting wins against Kanga. I don't think Kanga will fall over. I think Kanga always is a very good team. I would be surprised if it was a 3-0, 4-0, but I would expect to see Kanga take a couple of games. Just the way that Rock Monkey feels, the way that we interviewed them at the team house.
True.
And he was so confident with their squad, and even Rubu to Meta Pusher to Mr. Hayes, every single member on that team was so confident in their play. I just don't see Envy dropping games in week 1. It's going to be very surprising if they do not come out the winners on this.
And I mean, you can just see it through the replays right here, but it is very much a team that has veteranship. They've played together a lot, and they're versatile. They've done so much at the top of the mountain, like you said, and they have not only planted their flag, but I feel like they might have cemented it down a little bit too.
Well, unlike the Na'Vi, when they won Worlds, I talked to, obviously, Unbelievable and Phoenix, who are 2 of the winning World squads from the year prior, and they had told me that they had never stopped. They didn't take a break. They were working hard. There was a little bit of a disconnect with that for me, and the way Envy did it, it felt like it was wholesome. It felt like they did the right steps to take breaks but still stay focused. I'm not expecting them to have any kind of lull from working themselves too hard. I think they've done the right amount of prep, and they're going to be ready.
Well, I'm excited to see what those teams are going to be able to bring. Kanga specifically, which is why I think we chose them for their double header of matchups that are coming up this week. But we do have an actual prediction, one with the full graphic, the full support, where we got to sit down and talk to everybody. And this was, again, my personal favorite match of the week that I think I'm excited to see. Pittsburgh Knights going up against Virtus Pro, and we got to ask everybody, and I believe this time around you were the odd man out as terms of who we were all leaning towards. I mean, Virtus Pro, again, a team, I guess both of these teams really have to kind of showcase what their new rosters can do.
Yeah, I think I went with Knights on this one. Did I? Yeah, I think I did. And part of it is that Knights are a little they're a wild card. I think a lot of people have seen the way that Virtus Pro, each individual player can perform, but performing together, there are questions. Cuss and Dethroner have had some chances to play with each other this last bit, which is fantastic. And you see Ricotta and the ability for him and G-Bunny on Splice to have a solid foundation. I think people are maybe counting out Pittsburgh a little bit more than they should. Sure. I still could see VP taking this for sure, but I think Pittsburgh will give them a run for their money.
Definitely, I think a lot more of a surprise team, a surprise factor team coming into this week. But, I mean, once we see all these teams, the only, I guess, surprise left will probably end up being SSG and how they can perform coming in a little bit. We do have the standings for the PPL. Obviously, none of the games have been played, but we can look at the teams and where they've been going. Starting tomorrow, we're going to have some intense games. I wonder alphabetically, I can't remember who's the #1 team.
The alphabet standings? What is this? What are we
Kanga
doing?
is #1 as of right now, but you can see all of the teams right there. The only one not playing this week is going to be none other than Space Station Gaming, but I think they're not necessarily a wild card. Everyone kind of knows what to expect out of them as of now, but they're that team that I think because they're not playing Thursday or Friday this week, they're going to surprise people.
Yeah, I think Envy obviously are going to have a strong opening, in my opinion. I'm worried about Nodus Vincere not having Mutu. Phoenix will be here now, as we've seen. Virtus Pros, who I've got my eye on the most, and I'm really excited to see if Pittsburgh Knights can surprise some people in their sets, knowing that they're probably, alongside Renegades, the team that people are worrying about the least. But, you know, talking to NIP, they were scared that Cuss was going to throw some weird stuff at them. I'm telling you, Bonker, and they're like, we know something weird is happening. We have to be ready. We don't know anything about them. So that should be fun.
Well, land meta is going to change everything that is going on, but I've mentioned it a few times this show, and I think it's worth mentioning one more time. We have an interview with Vex30 that is going to be coming up in just a second. We kind of get to go and maybe dive in depth more to what to expect, not only from Virtus Pro's new roster, but maybe just out of the players themselves. But until we get to that, before we get to that, while we get set up, we're going to throw to a quick break, and then we'll be right back with none other than Vex.
So you were some of the best of things, the best of things, the best of things to find.
You know, I was just telling Vex, I look really fancy with my papers in front of me. I forgot to write down literally any of the questions that I had planned out to ask him. So this is going to be as fun of an interview for you as I think it is for me. But of course, you've seen me. I've been here the whole show. Vex is now going to be sitting on the desk with me. And I mean, you're here in Atlanta. The Premier League starts tomorrow. You've got a new team. Like, how are you feeling, dude?
Excited. It's been a while since we've played. Like, when you take that big of a break from competitive, your drive just goes up because you want to play more and more. Like I haven't stopped wanting to play. It's been so long.
I mean, you haven't gotten to play, I guess, like at that level again for a while. I mean, G2 had unfortunately fallen a little earlier, I think, in the HRX bracket that they had wanted. So for you, I mean, for everybody, since November, it's kind of been like, well, what scrims can we do? Who are we going to be playing with? And that's where, like, an interview with you came into detail when we got to talk to you at the beginning of December. We were talking to you about support. We were talking to you about your YouTube channel, everything that's been going well in that area. But you were hinting at the fact that since everything's on LAN, it's going to be different. And then you were like the team to do it. You're bringing in, what, 3 regions into one team?
3 different regions. It's going to be fun. We have two players from Europe, Sefi Cloud and Fisheko. We have 2 players in North America, me and Dosups. Our coach is from Canada, the Spuds. He's a lesser known player, but a really just amazing coach. We now have 1 from LATAM on the main roster, which is Akate, but now we had to bring in a sub because Sefi Cloud had visa issues. So we brought in Puliuli. So now we have 2 LATAM, 2 Europe, 3 North American.
And that's just...
It's crazy.
I think, again, like we were talking about Kanga now having the Australians plus Europe plus NA, but you, I think, hands down, your team has the most regions in all of it. The thing that kind of catches my eye, I mean, like, obviously you've played with Dosups before in the past. That was probably not necessarily like an easy pickup for you, but when you're looking at players, you're like, I know this guy, I know he can play well, and he's a free agent. Let's get him. But what caused you to scout like towards Europe and towards Hecate?
So since we knew it was a LAN league, we knew we could bring in players from everywhere.
Yeah.
It's going to be no ping. when you look at Akate, every single land, you look at all the lands, he's just popped off.
He's so good.
He's insane. He's the best. I think him and Rockmonkey are the 2 best aimers in the game by far. Then you have Fisheko. Every single land, I don't think he's had a bad one. That's what we looked at. When we really wanted to choose these players, we looked at their land performance. I don't care about online. That's not what matters at this point. It's all about how they perform under pressure and where they're going to be when it comes to playing on stage.
I mean, that's where the new setup is, and I feel like you're probably one of the not the only team that's thought that way, but it definitely seems like you planned this out essentially, like from day one. And that's what I was thinking, like when you were giving that interview, and then when I finally saw your roster, I was like, he's known. Like he's known for months. Like this guy was making those plays in late November, early December for things that weren't going to happen until like February. And so, you know, grabbing players, and I very much agree with you, and this is something I actually had talked about when the roster was announced a couple days ago, but Hecate has been the one that I think has stood out the most to me. Obviously, everyone on that roster has been a veteran. They've played in the PPL before. They've made it to LANs before. And like you said, they all had great performances. But this is going to be his technical first foray into the Premier League. So do you think seeing him play consistently on LAN, like with your team and then against the likes of the other teams in the PPL, do you think it's only uphill from here? Or like, is this going to be like we're always going to see, you know, a Canessa on every map?
Like Akate, that team made it to semis and worlds. They were so close to beating, what was it? Was it Fnatic or Na'Vi that they almost beat?
They almost beat Na'Vi.
It was Na'Vi. They were so close to beating them. I think it's just uphill from here. Akate is he's so excitable on lane. He gets so hyped. You ever seen him when he's on stage? He jumps up after a win. That's what we were looking for. You need that hype on stage to keep you going. You got to have fun when you're on stage, and Akate really brings that to the team.
I think one of my favorite quotes as of late has been having a player like your teammates always through the ups, right? You're always going to be friends. You're always going to be happy when everything's going well. But do you think like this team, the mentality, that's something that G2 in the past, your team had kind of suffered with, where it's if you were getting beat, things kind of got brought down. You could tell that the team energy was low. The play style would start to suffer for it. Do you think your team can kind of withstand through that because of the hype that is coming either from Hecate or whoever else?
So to tell you the truth, we kind of had that recently. It was not recent. It was like a month ago. We kind of had that lull. You know, all teams will have that, and like how you come through it is how you're going to be in the future. We went through a low spot. We were losing a little bit. We were getting a little frustrated, but we got through it. We stayed excited. We moved past it. That's what a good team has to do. When you're down, you got to keep up and you got to keep going. And the mentality was a huge thing whenever we decided to pick up this team. We looked at how everybody is. Fisheko known as Toxeco, you know. He's known as toxic, but he's a really smart player. He's not toxic in scrims, you know. He's not very toxic. He's really energetic. He's just excited to play the game. Both of them are.
And I think you're actually in a unique scenario where, again, for a lot of these players and even yourself, like you've spent pretty much the last year on a single team, maybe even longer, essentially, for a lot of these guys to sit with one crew. Hecate, more recently in LATAM, like his team has started going through those shuffle periods, but now they get to come up. So do you feel like having like that fresh team, like you're speaking English, whether or not it's, you know, maybe slightly broken English or fully fluent, either from North America or not, but you're with this new team, a new feeling, and do you think that's kind of like positively affecting everybody?
A breath of fresh air. That's exactly what it was. I was on SK for a while, then I joined G2 for 6 months. I was on G2 before the PPL, that team. So I was with that team for so long.
Yeah.
You love the guys. I still love them to death, every single one of them, even if we split apart. But it's so nice to have a new team. It's so nice to hear new voices, make up new plays, new call-outs. It was so fun to go through the process, and we're still doing it, and we're progressing as the season goes.
And so we got to kind of look at, I singled out your matchup this week because I think it's going to be the one, to me, that's most interesting because your team has been the one that has caught my eye the most. But you're going up against the Knights, and they are, again, a couple of former teammates that you've been able to play with and against in the past. So how are you feeling, I mean, like going into that for your first week?
So it's exciting. It was like, Cuss was my teacher.
Yeah.
I followed him. I was under him for so long. And then I leave the team. I come back, he moves the tank, and I take the support role, which was crazy to me, you know. Taking that role, he was always my mentor when it comes to support. So playing against him again is so exciting. That whole team, they have a really good core in Ricotta and Dethroner. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think that team does have that wild card factor, like you were saying. We don't even know what to expect, to be honest. We're trying. It's nice. We're going to be able to see what's going on with them the day before. But like that's all we get to know. they can hold easy stuff from us.
I mean, there's a lot, I think, coming down from their team that, again, when I first saw the roster, I'm going to be honest, I was on the fence about it. I was like, I don't know if this is going to blow up. I don't know if they're going to be able to like keep each other in the mentality they need, but based on what I've heard and seen from them, things are not only going smoothly, but they are potentially, again, I think every team at this point is one that could take that #1 spot. Week 1, I'm still thinking Envy and Navi are probably going to be strong, but again, we said this earlier, 13 weeks of competition. You're going to be here for quite a while playing these games.
It's going to be fun.
And I mean, like with this new format, you know, I know like LAN nerves were always the thing we would talk about, like, oh, you're playing at home, you're always in your like the confines of your bedroom, you're on your computer, but that's not going to be a thing anymore for these teams. Do you think week 1 is going to be not necessarily sloppy, but like a little bit more nervous energy, and then as week 2, 3, 4 comes in, you'll be smooth?
You might see a couple 4-1s, maybe a 4, maybe 1-4, but these teams are so close together at this point. But I think this first week will really let people get the nerves out. I think after the first week, though, the PPL is going to be insane. Most games 4-2, 4-3.
Yeah.
The teams, especially with their inner region, like us, Kanga, everything being so close together, every single set's going to be amazing. First week, maybe. I think it's going to be a little bit jumbled, a couple nerves coming out, but after that, it's going to be insane.
Well, I mean, before we end up going and closing out the show, I do want to ask you, you've been working on your YouTube channel, obviously. You've been doing a lot of content creation and just general support builds, loadouts, how to plays. So do you want to like have any like your Twitter, your YouTube, just shout yourself out?
Yeah, you can check me out on YouTube, Vex30. I usually post every single day, and Twitter at Vex30_YouTube. 2 main social media channels you can check me out on.
And those are the ones I think that you're going to learn. If you want to learn support, I literally can't think of too many other players that are either the best to learn from, and I can't think of anybody else who uploads as much as you do. So that's definitely the best.
I think I'm one of the main pros that upload on YouTube. It's kind of surprising. I want to see a couple more, dude. I want to see some people step up and actually post some more.
Well, we've got LAN content coming through, so we have everything going forward. But that is going to be it for this first episode of Esports Weekly. Thank you so much, Vex, for joining me for this one. I'm excited to see your team play. But again, that's going to be it for the show as of today. A couple of things for you to remember. First off, Premier League is starting tomorrow, and it's going to be a little atypical. It's starting at 10 a.m. as opposed to the normal 11 a.m. start time that we have for our other broadcasts. So make sure that you're here a little earlier to catch all 3 best of 7s that we have. That's going to be Thursday and Friday this week. And again, it's all on LAN, so everyone's excited. I also am going to throw out there and shout out that Bayshore has been working on a community calendar. Now, this is something that when it comes out a little bit later today, I believe, you're going to be able to sync up with your Google Calendar, whatever calendar you have, that will include the matches for the console league, the matches for the minor league, and all of the matches for the Premier League. So you'll be able to see everything that you have there all in one place, so you never miss a game, never miss a set, never miss a day, and that is going to be, of course, with a caveat that all times are subject to change. Sometimes things come up and we don't know whether or not it's going to start exactly when it is. But that's it for today. That is Esports Weekly. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in for this first episode. And we'll see you all tomorrow for the Paladins Premier League.
I'm gonna tell you right now.